Rejection is an almost universal experience. Everyone, at some point in life, has felt the sting of being ignored, excluded, or left behind. Whether by a romantic partner, a friend, a social group, or even family members. At first glance, this pain can seem disproportionate. Why does an unanswered word, a missed message, or a declined invitation cut so deeply, as if a part of us is being torn away? Conventional psychology often attributes this to issues of self-esteem or insecurity. But Carl Gustav Jung went further, exploring deeper layers of the human psyche to understand why rejection wounds us so profoundly. According to Jung, the pain of rejection is not solely connected to the immediate event. It taps into something much older, deeper, and archetypal. When someone is rejected, the human psyche doesn't just respond to the present. It unconsciously re-experiences all past instances where exclusion signified danger, abandonment, or emotional death. What we are truly feeling is the reactivation of a primordial wound, the fear of being left alone, helpless, or invisible. This fear originates in childhood, when acceptance from parents or caregivers was literally a matter of survival. And that is precisely why rejection cuts so deeply. Because it doesn't just refuse us, it feels as if we are being obliterated. Jung referred to this as the abandonment complex, a collection of memories, feelings, and automatic reactions buried deep in the unconscious. These mental forces act like unseen scripts, sparking emotional responses that we can't easily control. It's as if we're instantly transported back to the wounded child we once were. Yet there's something even more disturbing lurking beneath this pain. Jung noted that those most hurt by rejection are often individuals who have built their entire identity around the approval of others. They adopt what he called the dependent persona, a carefully constructed social mask meant to please, adapt, avoid conflict, and secure love and acceptance. When this persona is rejected, the impact is not merely emotional, but existential. It feels as though their entire existence has been invalidated, because there was never a true self behind the mask, only a continuous performance. This introduction brings us to a central insight. Rejection is more than a simple social setback. It acts as a mirror reflecting unresolved areas within our inner selves. It compels us to confront the shadow, the parts we hide, believe unworthy of love, or fear will lead to rejection. Within this confrontation lies the possibility for change. According to Jung, all pain offers an invitation. Though rejection may feel harsh, it can serve as the catalyst for deep psychological freedom and growth. As long as we are willing to endure the pain and confront what it exposes, we can grow. In this video, we will explore this journey thoroughly. We will examine why rejection triggers the abandonment complex, how the dependent persona keeps us trapped, and why facing our shadow is essential for true freedom. It's a difficult path, but the only one that leads to genuine individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, beyond the need for acceptance. Because ultimately, what wounds us most isn't external rejection, but self-rejection. Carl Jung noted that the events that destabilize us emotionally aren't always the most objectively severe, but those that activate deep unconscious layers, emotional patterns rooted in our earliest years. Rejection is a primary trigger for this. When someone excludes, ignores, or breaks a connection with us, we're not merely experiencing a fleeting frustration. We are touching, or rather, being overwhelmed by a much older psychic content, what Jung referred to as the abandonment complex. This complex resembles an open wound that never fully heals. It develops from early experiences of neglect, rejection, emotional punishment, or abandonment, sometimes subtle, that the child's psyche perceives as existential threats. For the child, rejection by caregivers is not merely a social issue, but a potential threat to their very survival. They rely completely on others for their well-being, and any hint of disapproval can be felt as a danger of death. These experiences don't fade with time. Instead, they remain hidden beneath the surface, forming an underground emotional framework that can be reignited when adult life presents similar circumstances. Jung described this as a complex constellation. Even seemingly minor events, like not being acknowledged by someone important, losing a job, or facing rejection, can set off a powerful emotional cascade. The reaction often feels disproportionate, not because we are fragile or immature, but because something deeper has been stirred. Something we hadn't realized still caused pain. And the cruelest part is that, once triggered, the complex seizes control. It hijacks our rational mind, warps our perception, and pushes us to react impulsively, desperately, defensively, or even self-destructively. We may become overly needy, aggressive, withdrawn, or emotionally distant. We are no longer engaging with the other person. Instead, we are battling internal ghosts that have come alive. The most tragic aspect is that many people spend their entire lives in this state, desperately avoiding new rejections without realizing they are caught in an unconscious pattern. But the abandonment complex does not act alone. It is closely connected to another aspect of the psyche that Jung masterfully examined: the dependent persona. This is the layer we create over our wounds to shield ourselves, a carefully crafted mask designed to gain acceptance, approval, and a sense of belonging. Next, we will explore this in detail, because truly understanding the pain of rejection involves recognizing the mask we wear to avoid it, along with the cost of doing so. If this resonates with you, please click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. The dependent persona is, therefore, a crafted identity that emerges as a defense mechanism against the pain of rejection. It is a version of oneself that seeks approval and avoids vulnerability by conforming to external expectations. While the persona itself is not inherently negative, being essential for social interaction, it becomes problematic when it dominates one's sense of self. In such cases, the true self is suppressed, and the individual begins to mirror others' desires and standards, losing touch with authentic identity. This reliance on the dependent persona can lead to a fragile sense of self, constantly seeking validation and avoiding genuine connection. An exaggerated and distorted version of this social mask. It stems from the unconscious belief that acceptance and love depend on being exactly what others want. From childhood, we learn to modify our behavior to avoid punishment or rejection. A child praised for obedience, for pleasing, or for not causing trouble internalizes the idea that they must always be pleasant, that their worth hinges on how much they can be accepted. Over the years, this belief deepens, shaping how we present ourselves to the world. This strategy becomes so ingrained that the individual no longer notices they are living an artificial life. They become someone who constantly seeks to please others, avoids conflict at all costs, and molds themselves to fit their surroundings. Their sense of identity is based on external validation, compliments, approval, and belonging. This isn't driven by vanity, but by a deep fear that if they lose acceptance, they will be forgotten, ignored, or discarded. The tragedy of this persona is that it offers no real protection from pain. Instead, it amplifies it. When this persona is rejected, the blow does not strike just a fragment of the self. It wounds the entire identity. If your existence depends solely on pleasing others, then any rejection becomes a complete denial of your being. The pain arises not only from losing the other person, but from the unraveling of an identity that was never genuinely yours. Such a person does not know who they are outside of others' approval, living in a perpetual state of emotional alertness, constantly interpreting every gesture, every silence, every expression becomes a potential threat to their sense of worth. Rejection, in this context, is not merely a painful event. It is an internal collapse, exposing the emptiness behind the mask. But there is something even more profound. When the persona begins to break down, and it will inevitably do so, we are forced to face what we have long hidden: our shadow, the parts we consider unacceptable, shameful, or unworthy of love, which we bury deep in the unconscious. And this is precisely the next step of the journey. When rejection shatters the persona, it forces us to confront what has always been hidden, the part of us that has never been revealed and may desperately need acknowledgement. As the dependent persona starts to break down, and rejection strips away the social mask we use to survive, an intensely uncomfortable process occurs. The shadow surfaces. According to Carl Jung, the shadow encompasses all we deny within ourselves: our impulses, emotions, desires, and memories that society, family, and, most crucially, ourselves have deemed unacceptable. It is made up of everything you have suppressed to be accepted. And that's why rejection wields such brutal power. It compels us to face what we've spent our lives trying to hide. The human mind searches for explanations for pain. When rejected, our initial response isn't rational but emotional and primal, with a familiar automatic narrative. There's something wrong with me. This thought, repeated silently like a mantra, isn't born of logic. It's the echo of the shadow, reverberating from the depths we refuse to acknowledge. Because when we face rejection, we don't just feel the pain of loss. We also access the core belief that we are fundamentally flawed. This is where suffering deepens. Rejection then becomes evidence, a living proof that our deepest fears about ourselves are true, that we are not good enough, unworthy of love, and that at our core, we deserve to be cast aside. Yet these thoughts do not originate from the present moment. They stem from the shadow, from the parts of ourselves that seek validation, acceptance, and worthiness from external sources. The individual will remain in the shadow of their true self until individuation begins, marking the start of genuine healing and the journey back to wholeness. This process is more than self-awareness. It signifies a profound transformation in how one interacts with the world, others, and most critically, oneself. Jung describes individuation as an ongoing effort to unify all aspects of the psyche, the conscious and unconscious, the persona and shadow, the ego and the self, toward integration and completeness. It is a process that demands confrontation, rupture, pain, and rebirth, with rejection serving as one of the most powerful catalysts to start this journey. When we face rejection and our ego's structure crumbles, we are given a rare opportunity to create something new where nothing was truly stable. On this fresh path, the individual ceases to seek validation externally, and instead begins to nurture what Jung referred to as internal authority. This involves cultivating one's own emotional compass. It involves the capacity to face oneself and affirm, even if no one else does, that I will not abandon myself. This inner authority isn't rooted in motivational slogans or positive affirmations. It emerges from enduring pain, confronting the shadow, and choosing to live in alignment with what is true, even if it means losing others' acceptance. This is one of the greatest freedoms a person can attain. When the need for approval is relinquished, the individual becomes psychologically resilient to rejection. They do not cease feeling. They do not become cold, indifferent, or arrogant. Instead, the pain no longer destroys them. It no longer defines or hijacks their sense of self. Deep within, there is a core that remains unwavering, even as everything around them falls apart. Strangely, it is in this state of internal resilience that life begins to shift. When you stop negotiating your worth, others can sense it. Your presence transforms. You radiate something rare, something that cannot be bought, taught, or faked: integrity. This magnetic quality draws in more genuine, profound, and aligned connections. Ironically, when you become impervious to rejection, you start to notice fewer experiences of rejection because you no longer resonate with the vibrations of lack, the need to please, or compulsive adaptation. Yet, there is something even more profound on this path. Individuation isn't solely about freeing yourself from rejection. It's about uncovering your true essence beyond roles, traumas, and conditioning. It's a journey that is both spiritual and psychological. Like any transformation, it leads to an inevitable encounter: the reunion with your shadow, no longer seen as an enemy, but embraced as an ally. In the next chapter, we will examine the peak of this transformation: how genuine emotional freedom arises only when you embrace your shadow. This often avoided act becomes the cornerstone of your inner strength. Rejecting the shadow keeps you fragmented, while integrating it leads to wholeness. Jung emphasized that individuation remains unfinished until the shadow is acknowledged and integrated. It stands as the last barrier between your current self and your full potential. Without this confrontation, true emotional freedom remains out of reach. Because as long as you fear, deny, or project the repressed parts of yourself, you stay vulnerable to rejection, manipulation, and internal breakdown. Integrating the shadow is the most radical act of self-compassion and the deepest sign of psychic maturity. But what does it mean in practice? It means confronting everything you've learned to hide: the anger you suppress to be accepted, the ambition you mute to avoid seeming selfish, the desires you consider immoral, and the thoughts that brought you shame, the emotions you refused to permit yourself to feel. To integrate them is to accept that all of these feelings are part of you, and rather than something to be eradicated, they are a potent source of energy. The shadow does not seek to destroy you. It seeks acknowledgement. It desires to be heard and to participate. When you consciously recognize it, its destructive influence diminishes, and it transforms into creative power. Repressed anger shifts into assertiveness. Suppressed sadness becomes sensitivity. Envy signals unacknowledged desires. When you project arrogance onto others, it exposes the self-confidence you once had, but abandoned. The qualities you criticize most harshly in others are often reflections of parts of yourself begging to be acknowledged. Jung emphasized that enlightenment isn't achieved by imagining figures of light, but by bringing the darkness within into awareness. That is the key. True freedom isn't about perfection, it's about wholeness. By integrating your shadow, external rejection no longer has the power to reinforce your negative self-image. You already know your flaws, your wounds, your contradictions, and yet you choose to stay with yourself. You become unshakable, not because you lack feelings, but because nothing you feel justifies self-hatred. This marks the end of the journey and the start of a new inner existence. A life where you don't plead for love, but simply offer your presence. Where you don't instinctively react to abandonment, but instead observe, understand, and decide how to respond. A life where you no longer try to fit into a mold because you have become your own axis. Rejection isn't the end. It's a call to growth. A harsh invitation, yes, but essential for you to stop running from yourself and to finally accept your whole being. Others may abandon you. The world may overlook you. But if you are complete within, nothing can truly break you. So tell me, which part of your shadow have you been avoiding to confront? Comment below. Share this message with those who need to hear it. And of course, if this resonated with you in any way, subscribe to the channel. There's still more to uncover, so before you move on, watch the next video. Continuing this journey is crucial, as awakening isn't a single event, but an ongoing process. And you've just taken another step.